Right on. We locked down temp. It never fails. Like every single time somebody walks in and we in the middle of the podcast are explaining how extremely professional our podcast is. And just so you know, this is actually the feeder podcast for the Joe Rogan podcast. So if you do this well and you pass, you just might end up. At least that's what he says.
He's gonna get me a booster seat to sit on. Well, and that was one thing I was going to say, because Rogan goes like 2 hours. Mm-hmm. The typical average podcast watch time is anywhere between 18 to 24 minutes.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know.
Just as you guys think through how you produce your content. So
we have, I think, very rarely gone over an hour, and it's usually with people that I just can't stop talking to because we're old friends and we're like, all right, we got to go, that kind of thing. So, we kind of have no illusions that. The goal of this podcast is different than, dude, why does this keep bumping up on me?
You've got a Rogan feel if you're interviewing historians and stuff.
Yeah, honestly, I just want to why does it keep doing this?
This never happens. This never happens. Are we live right now?
Yeah, we just kind of roll in and without a formal introduction. I think the main thing for me is I want to let people into how I think.
Yeah.
And as an introverted person that isn't look, I'm at the grocery store buying a gallon of milk and playing pranks on people. It's just not my personality.
Right.
So I'm I think I enjoy, one, catching up with my friends.
Sure.
And two, it's harder to do that these days. So I figured let's invite my friends. Yeah. Let's give them tickets to the show and let's just take the same conversation that we'd already be having and put a mic on it. That's what the whole thing has been. But outside of encounters with friends and catching up, it's what am I interested in? What would I like to learn about, truly? Not what am I an expert in and I want to tell people about it. I'm not an interviewer. I'm genuinely I would love to know more about a hidden city in Oak Ridge, Tennessee that helped create the atomic bomb that ended World War II.
Sure.
That seems super fascinating. I don't know anything about it, but we're 10 minutes from the lab. Let's get somebody,
Did you go to the lab?
No, we didn't have enough time. Regrettably, we were 20 minutes away, but we were I don't think it would have taken 20 minutes to get the bus out of the wherever in the world hills of Tennessee we were.
Yeah.
We were in the middle of nowhere.
But he was here's a piece of one of the bomb prototypes. You can have that.
Dude, well, we found out that the largest supercomputer in the world is in East Tennessee.
Really?
And also, one of the thickest accents in the world is in East Tennessee. So you don't necessarily put, superpower technology with super country boy, accent.
Dude, I was in an Uber. I was in Nashville a couple weeks ago and got in an Uber with a lady and driver. Sickest accent I've ever heard. I was like, where are you from? I'm from here. I'm like, no, you're not.
You're from around here.
Where actually from?
Yeah.
Yeah. She had moved over to Nashville 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So.
No, I lived in Tennessee on and off for a few years, and from 2012 to 2018, 19.
Yeah.
And there's a difference in the Oklahoma, Texas accent and the hills of Tennessee accent.
Oh, sure.
There's a difference for sure. Texas is more y'alls and over there it's a deep South accent.
Well, and me doing as much traveling and speaking as I do, I never recognize I have an accent because it's where we're from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's more than you think it is.
Yeah, especially when you go up northeast.
Yeah.
They're where are you from? Whenever I was a kid, I went to Times Square for the first time on a history trip or something. Yeah. And I went to, I think it was the NBA store because I was super into basketball at the time. And just as a fan, I think we just got the NBA team. We just got the Thunder. So I was up there on a trip and they were oh my gosh, where are you from? And I was Oklahoma. This girl, she had to be maybe college age girl working part-time at this store. And she was oh my God, Oklahoma, do you guys still do you guys ride horses everywhere?
That's the number one question.
It's this girl thought we didn't have cars yet.
Yeah. No, everybody do you guys? I'm well, it's not you guys, it's y'all.
Yeah, and it's y'all.
It's y'all.
For sure.
And we do have horses, but we actually have buggies as well.
Dude, speaking of horses, my wife and I just We just bought 3 horses.
What kind?
Shoot, I'm learning. We have a Palomino, and then we have a black horse, and we have a brown horse, and I don't know what they are.
Probably quarter horses.
Probably.
Yeah.
But we bought them from this refuge in Montana that has trail riding horses. But my wife is learning how to break horses right now.
Man, so
how badass is that?
Dude, so you probably don't even know this, but so my dad owns a feed store in Tulsa.
I didn't know that.
We grew up, like my dad, that's what he did, he broke horses. So for barrel racing and cutting.
Dang.
And so I think at one point in time, I think we had 23, but they were all quarter horses, so none of that, but
yeah,
all quarter horses.
Dude, I'm shocked at how, like I grew up, my family did a bunch of cattle. That was, they raised cattle in Broken Bow, but I was never, they used to run horses and that's how they'd round up the cattle. And then they went modern and they have 4-wheelers and side-by-sides and stuff. And so since I've been around, we only had 1 horse, and that horse passed away when I was pretty young. So I haven't really been around the ranch when it had horses.
Sure.
My mom grew up around horses and everything, and I didn't realize how, like, personally attached they become. Like,
oh, dude,
my wife hops the fence, and those horses come running up to her like dogs.
Yeah.
Like, they know her.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. I kind of figured they'd just be a little... I don't know. I didn't expect them to have that kind of chemistry with somebody.
Yeah.
And now it makes sense when you hear, like, cowboys talk about, their horses passing and how tough it is on them. It's like they have, like, human-like eyes. Like, you can tell that they recognize you and their thinking and their...
Well, and there's so much trust.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not they're not as wild as her.
And the communication's been really interesting. Come on. You're killing me.
Come on.
I got to give you that one. Completely lost my train of thought. We're introducing them to more horses that are on the same property that we keep my wife's family and her ranch, and we're introducing them to the existing horses there. And I didn't realize there's like a alpha, that there's a ranking system that they establish themselves. Mm-hmm. And so we, for a few days we kept them in the round pen, and then we moved them to a small pasture. We're like reacclimating them from Montana to Texas.
Yeah.
And then now we're about to introduce them into the rest of the herd. And you can see them like chirping at each other over the fence, and kind of like you can tell they want to be together, but you can also tell there's like some tension and friction, because we have a horse named Bam Bam that's like beautiful brown horse that's strong and in its prime, and you can tell that he is trying to figure out if he's going to be the leader of that herd or if the current alpha is going to be, top of the command. And then another thing that I saw about horses that I've never seen was that, I'm learning all sorts of stuff. First off, like, I thought it would be super expensive to take care of horses.
Oh, sure.
And really, we're learning all this stuff from who I call Cowboy John. His name's John. He's a guy that breaks horses, and he's kind of teaching Dana everything that she's learning. And he's like, man, it's like $80 to get them trimmed, to get their hooves trimmed every quarter. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, I'll throw a little bit of hay out, but these horses are running on hundreds of acres, and they got everything they need. Yeah. And you don't put blankets on them. They're wild animals. They can survive, Yep. And so the myth of, like, it's super expensive to own horses has kind of gone out the window for us. Now, I'm sure if they get sick or something, that's a different story. But
it's different if you
low maintenance. They're wild animals.
Yeah, it's different if you're stabling a horse. Mm-hmm. So if you're stabling, you're running grain. If you don't live on a pasture, you have to supplement a lot of hay.
Right.
But if you got pasture, it's super simple. But, dude, speaking of wild as hair, I'm going to transition you.
Come on.
Last time, we've had several serious conversations since then, but I remember you texted me, and then you called me. You think you were doing asphalt work.
Oh, yeah.
Is that right? You were doing asphalt work. And
Tissio paving.
And you're like, man, I don't know. I don't know if the music thing's going to work. I'm not really sure that this is where we're going to go. And then that breaks.
Crazy.
Dude, what is, like, and now you're on a bus.
Yeah.
Playing, like, what, show 8,000, like,
yeah,
big
this will be
shows, bro.
8,000 or 10,000 people tonight, maybe more. I can't remember how big the Walmart amp is, but
social media's blowing up. You look, and like every show's a big show now.
Mm-hmm. Well, not every show.
Well, but what's that been like?
Man, the last year has been, I think it has gone by so fast that there's parts of it that I still haven't had the ability to slow down and really process.
Yeah.
Like, I had a conversation just the other day with, we had Bailey Zimmerman on the podcast.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, we were playing some headline shows together of like 3,000 cap clubs in the Southeast, like, I don't know, 18 months ago. Not that long ago.
Right.
He and I were both just like splitting the money down the middle. Hopefully people show up. And we played those shows, and he was in a Sprinter van, and we were in an RV or Rooster. I don't know, but it definitely wasn't a bus. And I was saying how easy it was to look around and compare what you have to what somebody else has. And then it makes you, what you've accomplished and what you have, feel less than. And then I snapped out of it, and I realized we're sitting here complaining about what we dreamed of 18 months ago. Right now, it's not enough. And what I'm saying is, I'm catching myself in those moments. I don't just sit in that and I just, I'm not allowing myself to truly view things that way.
Yeah.
But that's a temptation to go, man, I wish I had 4 buses like Parker McCollum, and I wish I was selling 10 times as many tickets as, and then Parker can look at Morgan Wallen and say the same thing.
Sure.
So it's a continual, like, reflection that has to happen on where you've come from, because this time last year we weren't in a bus.
Right.
We were in a red van or an RV, driving ourselves, sleeping 2 hours a night and taking graveyard shifts. And so I say all that to say there are parts of it that I still am processing, because that part happened so fast. It was such a long, like, tedious, slow build, and then a moment happened and it went boop, and then we're here, and now we're on what I consider another tedious build, and then we'll have another moment and it'll jump. But I have great people around me because of the slow build.
Yeah.
Like, that is, I think, the biggest blessing of not just something really popping overnight is that, every single guy on our band and crew has sold t-shirts for us. They have loaded the trailer in and out themselves. They have, there was a night in Manhattan, Kansas, where we took a last-second show. 75 people were there. We were the opener, and we took that show under the assumption that we were going to be able to sell merch and break even. And in order to break even at the time, we had to sell $750 worth of merch, because we were losing money on the show.
Yeah.
Which means we had to sell $10 to everybody in that place. And I remember looking at the guys, and we walked over and we had a bottle of Jack on our rider, and I was like, I don't care how we do this, but you guys go out with merch. We have to get this sold. Otherwise, we're not going home. Like, we don't have the money to go home.
Yeah.
And so what we did was we started pouring shots of Jack and offering them to people if they would buy something at merch. We took the rider. I'm not sure if that's illegal, or I'm sure there's some sort of, that's a no-no at a bar. But that's what we did, and we walked out of that place with over $750, and that just shows the DNA of the crew and the quality of the person. Like, it has been a team effort and a team build for so long, and we've created a really good culture, and that part is probably what I'm most proud of, is the people, the quality of character on the bus.
Yeah.
Because
it's a lot of travel.
And I don't have to worry about, when I'm not in the room, how I'll be represented.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about somebody being an a-hole to somebody, or just making stupid mistakes that will reflect poorly on the brand that I'm trying to be, on the husband and father that I'm trying to be.
Yeah.
I trust these guys. So
how's that prioritization been? Like, with now increasing, I assume you're increasing, you're touring.
Oh, God, yeah.
Heavy. How is that with how's that with the fam? But then 2, I know I just posted, I think we just posted a reel about it today, about the importance of your partner.
Yeah. It takes a very...
Takes a special kind of woman.
Strong, understanding, but not pushover. Like, my wife is always holding up the mirror to me. Mm-hmm. Like, it would be very easy. If I would have married a fan, I would have a very different dynamic with my partner, right? But my wife, while she is supportive of what I do and encouraging of me chasing my dreams and providing for our family in this way, she's always calling me back to like, hey, maybe you shouldn't take this money for this show. Maybe we should stay home and get some family time. Like, she's constantly holding up a mirror to make sure that what we're doing is what I would be proud of 20 years from now, and that I'm not trading the immediate time with my kids or quality time with her for things that just aren't going to last, whether that's success or that's money or that's, career momentum or, man, it does take a special kind of woman to have a healthy marriage doing something like this. And then priority wise, man, we're really striving hard right now to get to a second bus, not for the sake of being flashy or having more room, but for the sake of being able to bring my family with us. Yeah. And as a family, that's really important to us. We've started this last year. We started homeschooling our oldest girl to give us more time together.
I was gonna ask, how that.
It's, you know what? Like in the climate that we find ourselves in.
Sure.
I think it's going to become, and it probably already is, but it's going to become increasingly normal for people to just go, you know what? I'm not going to leave this up to somebody else to teach my kids. I'm just going to, because I heard a great quote, they're going to get indoctrinated by somebody. Mm-hmm. Because they're going to be spending 8 hours a day with somebody. Yeah. And those thoughts of whoever those people are going to affect how that kid thinks. Sure. So we are the last people I ever thought would homeschool, because we were like counting down the days until our kids were old enough to go to school so we could kind of have some sort of our life back.
We all do.
And now I'm like, I don't know, man. I love the fact that I can take my little girls to the bank with me and they can understand that, hey, daddy goes to play music to make money to provide our house that we live in. And, God blesses dad's music so that can happen. And then we take that check that I get and we go to the bank, and then we put that check in an account, and then that makes this card work. And then when we go to the store to buy your clothes or your food, that's how this card works. And they're 4 and 6 and they understand that. Yeah. And I'm like, man, there's 22-year-old girls that are just like still living on dad's credit card that probably don't really understand the sacrifice that goes in to be able to swipe the card, right?
That's it.
So I do appreciate the things that we're able to teach them outside of the school setting. But mainly it's like, it's a prioritization of trying to buy our time and get more time together. Yeah. I mean, I think if she misses 9 days in the Texas school system, she's truant and we got to go to court. And I'm like, man, we're for sure going to miss 9 days. Yeah. Like, we travel all the time. But that's the priority. Get to a second bus so that they have the option, if they want to be out with us on the road, they can be. Because that's the hardest part of this job. Yeah. I swear. It's the hardest part of my marriage. It's the hardest part on me as a father. We just turned down a show that, for an amount that I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that there was a reality in which I would turn down this much money for a show to be home. And like, praise God, it's gotten to a point where we're not a slave to the paycheck, right? Yep. But it's just, that's where my priorities are. Yeah. It's just, we're working out of a season where we haven't had the luxury of being able to choose, into a place where we can now go, is this worth it? Is this part of what we've been striving for? And if not, we say respectfully, thanks for the opportunity, but Corey's going to stay home now,
I do. Man, when I was coming up, like in the business world and then speaking, so I was traveling every couple weeks.
There was a
5-6 days.
I saw you all over,
I was all over the country. And like, there's a season, and people don't understand, like, there's a season where there's no other option. Like, if you're trying to make it, I've got to be in front of people, because I don't have the money to put myself in front of people. Right. So I don't have an unlimited marketing budget. So you're either paying with time or money. So I got to put the time in. Now on the backside, created some, what I would consider some success and some stability from a financial standpoint that I'm very, very grateful for. But that allows me to say, man, if this conflicts with sports, if this conflicts with anything, it's just an easy no for me.
Yep.
What it does do is it will set your kids up, because Stetson's 9 now.
Crazy, man.
Dude, it's wild.
Little stud wrestler at Bixby. Come on.
Well, that's why we don't homeschool, because that kid's so obsessed with sports. That's literally it. I remember.
How's Bixby? Is Bixby's wrestling program as good as it used to be?
It's better.
It's better.
It's insane. We've got Stanford's head coach now.
No
Shane
way.
Roller's back.
Shane Roller's
Yeah, dude, it is.
I heard his daughters have.
Oh, dude, all of his kids are monsters. We've got Joe Smith, which is he's double NCAA, I think 2 times maybe. He was OSU.
That's John Smith's son. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, dude. So it's like
he's coaching.
Oh,
so
he's
awesome.
he's Stats coach.
Right on. Man.
So I mean, if you're gonna do it,
that's the play.
You might as well do it.
Yeah.
So
wow.
But what it does, like for Stetson, is he's so now accustomed to like the frame of like we don't miss. We don't miss. And part of the reason that Dad does what he does and he works so hard is so he doesn't have to miss. And so getting the right people around me, we're constantly building companies. And so
what do you mean by we don't miss? Like
I don't miss games.
You don't miss
events.
time. Yeah.
Jefferson's don't miss.
Got it.
Now, if there are he's in competitive baseball right now, and so I missed, like I was in Nashville a couple weeks ago speaking. There was no tournament on the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Week of, we're gonna play this tournament. So I have to go to Stat. I have to say, hey, what do we also do? We keep our word.
Mm-hmm.
Said, so this wasn't on the books, and I scheduled this. So Dad's got to keep his commitments because that's what men do.
Yeah.
And so
that's good.
It's an interesting dynamic to be in that position, but it also, for the people around you, it sets a new standard for them.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people that will sacrifice their soul and everything they love on the altar of some self-perceived success. And so when you give people permission, and they're like, well, Corey's doing well, because there's people that are looking to you, and it's like, well, and he says no.
Mm-hmm.
He prioritizes his family, or prioritizes his family. I can do that too.
Yeah.
So it's not just setting a standard for you, for your kids, for your wife.
Good.
It's for all the people that are watching you as well.
Yeah. To speak to what you said a minute ago of like we've all been to that place where we're building a business or building a career.
Yeah.
And you don't have the luxury of saying no yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a real place, and that's a really hard place to be, and it's a place where you don't know if the payoff is actually going to happen. You don't know if you will attain what you're going for.
No.
But you have to keep pushing. I met Thomas Rhett in London.
Mm-hmm.
We were playing a festival over there, and it was the first time I had to go halfway across the world to meet a dude that lived in the same town as me for however many years, right? But I got over there, and he's a husband, he's a father. You can tell by the way that he spends his time. That's very important to him. So I was asking him, I was like, man, this is probably an unconventional question, but I'm really wrestling with how do you know when to say no? Mm-hmm. And he looked at me, and he kind of shook his head and smiled, and he goes, I hate to tell you this, buddy, but right now you're at the point in your career where you can't say no.
Yeah.
And it was very eye-opening to me because a guy that I looked up to and I respected as a husband and a father was real enough with me to say, like, you've got to persevere through this phase.
Yeah.
And then you'll be in a place where you can. And we just now are starting to be able to do that. I mean, like I said, we're coming out of a phase of needing to say yes to everything.
Mm-hmm.
But my struggle with being able to do what you do and say, hey, like, our family doesn't miss, is that my life is scheduled a year in advance.
Yeah.
And my kid's dance recital is scheduled 2 months in advance.
Right.
So I end up a lot of times missing things, and it just kills me. And my goal is to buy enough of my time back to get enough success to be able to go, you know what? I'm taking the month of June off, and I'm going to coach my kid in whatever sport. And it's just is what it is. There's no amount of money that's going to make me miss that, and, like, that's what I want to do. So that's what I'm striving for.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's a hard place to get to, and an even less guaranteed place to get to. So
my mentor, a guy named Dan Martell, met just massive in the business community and in the SaaS world, and he's got a jet. We were at dinner in Nashville, and it's like, the jet. He's like, it's not for flex. His book is called Buy Back Your Time. Phenomenal book. It's bestseller in business. It's amazing.
Go get it now.
Yeah,
I just said that like 4 times.
Yeah, it's an incredible book. I can send you a copy. We give them to all of our guys in our mastermind, because what we're trying to do is help them leverage their resource. Like, hey, let's keep your margin and like your take home. Let's keep that steady right now. Let's not increase. Let's not take more distribution. Let's hire effectively so that you can stay within your means, but you get more of your time back. 'Cause at the end of the day, all the stuff's going to go back to the dirt with you.
Yep.
But time you never get back. And your kids won't remember what watch you wore or what stadiums you sold out.
Oh.
They'll just remember that you weren't there. And so that's our big thing. But I was asking about the jet, and I was like, I'm not interested, but I'm kind of interested. I was like, how quick? And he said, I only bought it so I could get home faster.
So this dude, Parker McCollum, he told me the same thing.
Yeah.
He goes, it is the biggest cheat code
It's
I've
flying
ever.
private. It's
He goes, he pieces out after show at midnight and is back home in his bed at 2 a.m. having a normal Sunday.
that's it.
And where am I? Southwest Airlines, baby.
So
5
that's
a.m.
so that might be another milestone that we're looking to hit.
Yeah.
Just from the family perspective. Even just fly back home to old Bixby and see the fam, and then jump back out. Fly to Texas, jump back out.
No doubt. Well, yeah, and I mean, it really not, well, 2 things come to mind. One is a quote that says, a luxury enjoyed once becomes a necessity.
Sure.
That's like the bus, right?
Yep.
Like we went to the bus for the Aldine tour. We tried to do it in an RV.
Try getting back into U-Haul.
Oh, dude, we went back. Listen, dude, after the Aldine tour, first off, we tried to not go to a bus. We tried to do the Aldine tour. We were trying to convince our management that we should do it in an RV because we could lose less money.
Yeah.
As crazy as that sounds, like as a first of 3 on a tour that big, you are essentially losing money in exchange for massive exposure, right? Not because they're not paying you, but because your expenses are going to outweigh what you're getting paid because you're traveling to 45 cities over 6 months, and you got a bunch of guys on payroll, and you got a bus that gets 4 miles to the gallon. It's a lot. So we were like, maybe we'll do it in an RV. And they were like, yeah, you guys are going to die. Like, you get out of the venue at 2 a.m. and you got an 8-hour trek to the next city, and you have to do that for 6 months. No chance. You got to go to a bus. So we went to a bus. And then, like, my guys have always had this, like, the tough mentality. We're going to grind it out, and we would value profit over comfort.
Sure.
And so that's how it's always been. And then we got to the bus, and then after the Aldine tour ended, we were like, we have 2 weeks of Texas shows. Let's hop back in Rooster. Let's do it in the van. Night 1. What were we thinking, man? It was, a luxury enjoyed once is a necessity.
Yeah, it's like just because you can go backwards doesn't mean that that's the most, even from a mindset perspective.
Right.
Like when you start setting a new standard for how you live and how you experience, it's now, okay, well then how do we maintain that? And then how do we, now what's the next vision?
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily about more luxury or comfort. It is, how do we get our time back? Well, how do we leverage this to get our families on the road? You know, because once that happens, you don't want to go back from that.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and then the other thing that what you were talking about made me think of was the, I'm going to butcher this, but do you know the parable of I think it's a Mexican fisherman, where this like American businessman goes on vacation to Mexico. Oh man, this fishing business, I can help you scale this, and you can make millions, and then you can go public, and he's like, okay, but what for? He's like, well, you'll be able to just spend your time how you want and fish and play guitar with your friends on the weekend and eat and drink and be merry. And he's like, I'm already doing that.
Right. Yeah.
And then it dawns on you, like, what you're striving for is your time. You know, it really is. It's the most valuable thing we have. So I think, I mean, my perspective of people who have the ability to do illustrious things is changing.
Yeah.
You know, I used to think it was, like you said, a flex, and now I'm like, or they value their time more than they value how much they got sitting in their bank, and they're willing to part ways with what they have sitting in their bank in order to get more time back. Like, that's admirable.
Yeah. Once you create leverage and you understand how to create leverage financially, well, then it is, I can do this. So your mindset shifts to where it's like, even for you, it's like, well, even if we wanted to go in the red a little bit on a couple of things, we know how to re-leverage to get to the black. We've done it. We have the formula for it. We know how to get there if we value this experience or this time over this luxury. It's interesting when you think about like human psychology and how people grow, and you even notice this from a marketing perspective. Like when you're a kid, all you want is stuff. It's the next thing. My kids are obsessed with Pokemon cards. So it's like you open a pack and then it's just on to the next pack.
Right.
And it's just stuff. And if you grew up like me, you didn't have a lot of stuff. We grew up in Liberty Mounds, like rural Oklahoma. Like you got a pretty mouth. And you know.
I know.
You know. And
Bixby before it was the Bixby we know now, dude.
Yeah, small town. I think there's one gas station.
Foxmart,
that's it. And so, but then it goes to experiences. So like you want to graduate high school, you want to fall in love, you want to consummate that relationship, you want to get married, you want to go to college, you want to get the job, you want to travel, right? And then once you once you move through those stages, you recognize that everything is about the people, the quality of your relationships, and time. For people who never got to experience getting stuff, that's immediately what they go back to when they start making money, because they want the stuff they never had. And it's also why people who make money spend it frivolously, but also if they've never had it before, it's also why they buy their kids more stuff, because they think, I want to give you all the things I never had. When really, if you're anything like me or you, like dad works, and still he's 67. He'll work from dusk till dawn at that feed store, lugging 50-pound bags. And so it's never that I wanted more stuff. I just wanted him to be at things. And he couldn't be because he was tied to it. But he was tied to it so he could give us things.
Yep.
And really just provision. That's all we had. And so then if it's you've never had the experiences, well, then you want to travel. You want to go to Bali. You want to do all the things. It's all great. But that's why so much of marketing is messaging to all the stuff and to all the larger-than-life experiences, the flying private, the supercars, because people never had that. So that's what they market to. All of my friends and mentors do well. And they have nice things, and more of it is an asset class, like timepieces and things that appreciate. All they want, though, is to live generously and to live in peace. Peace is highly undervalued.
Oh, man.
Peace.
Yeah.
Peace is where it's at.
And you can tell when
Going
people
home,
have it.
Having peace in your home, having peace with your kids, having peace with your spouse, having peace with God. How's it been how's your faith life been on the road? How do you maintain that?
Man,
because we've had some conversations. We've had some early morning scripture texts.
No doubt, man. It's my two biggest regrets about how this whole thing operates at the present moment is that I am away from my family so much, and that I very rarely can make it home in time for a Sunday morning service. And I have searched far and wide in DFW area for a Sunday night service or a Tuesday service. That used to be a thing when I was growing up.
Oh yeah.
You know, like they had a Sunday night service, and like my wife grew up going to I think like a 5 o'clock Sunday service. Yeah. They don't exist anymore. They'll pack them in at, they'll do the 8:45, 9:30, 11 all day, but they won't. I haven't found a church that allows for that. So
yeah, I don't know if it's your speed or not, but I do know there's Life Church in DFW.
It's in McKinney, I think.
They do 6 p.m. services.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
All Life churches do.
Okay.
Yeah, they pack like 6 services.
I'm gonna have to look into that. That is my biggest thing, because my wife is super faithful to. She's just amazing, man. Like I want to take a moment to honor her, and like I said it last night from the stage, I just felt moved to honor her. I said in the middle of a song, I was like, I wrote this song for my wife. Our new song, Rust, that came out.
Yeah.
I was like, I wrote this song for my wife. I'm up here on the stage. She's holding it down at home. Make no mistake about it. Like, she's the real rock star here. Like, what I do is easy compared to what she does.
Sure.
And she, at the end of a long week or the beginning of the week, however you want to view a Sunday, she is still faithful. Even hanging out with friends on Saturday, because she's still, I'm gone on Saturdays. She wants to have some time with her friends who work 9 to 5s, and they're off on Saturdays. So it might be a late night on a Saturday, and she's still faithful to get up early, get the kids dressed, get out to, you know how hard it is to get 3 kids to church on time, not looking like a bunch of Neanderthals? Like, she is a superhero and is faithful to do that so that our kids can grow up having access to learn about Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, she is so, not that that's not happening in the home or anything, but like, I do think it's very important, the consistency piece.
Sure.
Of like, you never know when a kid, it's going to click for them.
Yeah.
And you never know who is going to be that person that connects with them on that level to open their mind to the possibility of what is true. And, you know, so she is just so faithful to get those kids to church, and it means the world to me. You can see how my kids, like the quality of character they already have at 6, 4, and 2, and it's almost entirely attributed to my wife. Like, I wish I could take more credit, but I have been so gone for so many years now, and it kills me, dude. It rips my heart out. And I try to make the most of my time every time I'm home, but she gets the credit 100%. Like, she is raising incredible kids that love Jesus, that are respectful, that are hardworking, that are, and, you know, I'm trying to lead by example, but I'm not always there to, like, in this present moment, I'm not always there to verbally teach those lessons, you know, and my wife's doing a great job. So, I think it could be better, if I'm being honest with you. I think that my attention is pulled so many different directions when I'm out here. I mean, from podcasts to writing, we have a writer's bus out. Obviously, we've got a sound check every day. I'm trying to take care of myself physically. I'm trying to get enough sleep on the road, which never really happens because you're on a rocking bus hitting potholes and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
it's a grind, dude.
Yeah.
And it's not a, like, woe is me grind. It's just like, how do you sustainably do this and not lose your mind, or let yourself go, and not from a vain standpoint, from a, like, how do I feel? How am I operating? Am I constantly tired? Am I, you know, do I feel strong? Do I feel like a good example for my son? Like, that's a big thing to me. It's tough to keep all the plates spinning out here, dude. It really is. And that's why I continually say I'm fighting for more of my time, because I think there is a better, more efficient way to operate when you have the power to say no to more things.
What makes this worth it?
Man, I think, take a minute to think about that before I answer it, because that's a big question. You know, my initial response to it would be that it was a dream, but the reality is, I don't know. I don't feel truly gifted at other things. I feel like I could be I really believed at one point when I started working for the pavement company, I really believed that if I could make X amount and have X amount of time at home and do what I wanted with that couple days on the weekends, that I would feel good about it and I would enjoy my life. And I didn't at all. And I think it was a result of doing something that I wasn't passionate about and not having an outlet. It wasn't just the pavement company that it's like that work was fine, but I also didn't have an outlet to do what I was passionate about because it was COVID.
Oh yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's not just like, well, I think that you have to have your dream job to be a happy human. It was that there was no outlet for it. Like, I love playing live. If I could only write and record, then I would quit playing music. Live music is what I truly love and I feel like I've been gifted at.
Yeah.
And so not using my gifts that was a tough time. I felt unfulfilled in a lot of ways, even though I got more quality time with my family than I got more consistent time with my family. But I also realized that even though, this is circling back to your question, even though I'm gone a lot, my time, I did the math at one point. The amount of time that I got with my kids during hours they were awake while I was working at the pavement company was actually less than the amount of time I got with my kids while they were awake when I was on the road. Wow. Because when I would come home, when I go home on a Sunday and I get there at noon, I'm there uninterrupted from noon on Sunday to Wednesday at 8 o'clock when they go to bed. All of those hours that they're awake, I'm there and I'm present. I'm able to be present. Now, what I choose to do at that time, I've missed on that sometimes, right? Like I've been in my phone or I've taken a phone call from a manager and I'm getting better at drawing those boundaries. But the actual sheer amount of time that I'm able to be with them is greater doing this than having my 9 to 5 that was putting food on the table. So that's one. But two, I want to encourage my kids to go for whatever it is they want to go for. And being able to do that from a place of like firsthand experience is more powerful than being able to, sit behind and settle for the job that just puts enough food on the table and go, hey, you can do whatever you want, dream, go and do it. It's a different thing when you go, hey, I know the odds are stacked against you right now, but let me tell you the odds of what I did. Like, it is more likely that you play in the Super Bowl than it is you have a number one hit at country radio. There's been 200 people-ish in the last 40 years that have accomplished that. So if I can do that, you can totally become a master mechanic and make $250,000 a year or whatever your dream in life is, right? If you want to travel the world, like, you can do that 100%. There's always a solution to whatever obstacles in front of you. And I'm not saying that from a place of hypocrisy because I settled. I'm saying that because I went after something that was not supposed to be possible and it worked. So I think that even if I stopped today, I would be able to say that with confidence and validity to my kids, and I think that's powerful.
Yeah.
But I also just have, I have an achieving mentality that, like you said, I'm always on to the next, right? Like that, I have to keep that in check. And that's a good question to reflect on. It's like, why is it worth it? I love art too. I love making art, and this is one of the most fun forms of creating art ever.
For me, I love people, and I love helping people see what's possible, and I love building things. I've been a mechanic for 21 years. And so like business is like an engine, leadership is like an engine. And so you got all these moving parts, and getting it to work as fluidly and as efficiently as possible is like how my brain works. And for me, it's so similar, and this will like put a little button onto what you're saying, is that for me, I don't ever want to get to the point where like Seth's an adult and I say, man, you can do anything that you want to do. I'm not telling you it's going to be easy. I'm going to tell you you're going to fail quite a bit, but you got to fail through it. It's like going on a bear hunt. You can't go around it. You can't go over it. You can't go under it. I don't know if you never read those books to your kids, but you got to go through it. And like the fear that keeps me going is that he would look at me and say, you didn't. So for me, it's how do I create healthy prioritization and boundaries to say you actually can do everything and you can have everything. That doesn't mean you can have everything materialistically that you want. But you can have a healthy family. You can have a healthy walk with God. You can have a healthy body. You can create financial success for yourself, whatever that looks like to you. I don't need him to be me. He wants to be. He's like, I want to be in business. I want to do what you do. I'm like, if that's what you want, cool.
Yeah, I know a guy.
But whatever you want to do, I just want you to go all in, and I want you to see what it looks like. Like, what does operating in integrity look like? What does keeping those boundaries look like? What does keeping your word look like? What does, because he knows when things are going a little sideways in companies, because we're consistently within 2 or 3 of my companies, we're typically in a scale of some sort. So there's a lot of numbers at play. There's a lot of margin conversation. There's a lot of hiring, a lot of firing, a lot of SaaS being implemented, a lot of marketing restructure. And he knows when I'm stressed. And I can remember one day he came in my office and I was whiteboarding a new strategy. And you just have to know his personality. He comes in and he puts his hands on his hip, but he puts them on like Forrest Gump. So like backwards. He's like, "You're stressed." I'm like, "I am." He's like, "What are you working on?" I'm like, a new marketing strategy. We've just never been here before, so we're ironing some things out. He's like, "Good things Jefferson solve big problems." And while cheeky and cute, like, he left and I got I'll get emotional. Like, I got so overwhelmed with emotion because it's like, he's like, I'm not just saying it. When you can live in a place where it's like, I'm not just saying it, and it's not easy, it's so much easier to settle.
Yeah.
It's so much easier. Yeah. It doesn't mean your soul's at rest. It doesn't mean that you're fulfilled. But, and you know this because we're from the same place. We're in very different industries.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anybody from where we're from doing what we're doing.
No.
Like, it wasn't supposed to happen.
Right.
Not for people like us. Now, like, it doesn't happen.
Yep.
And so to say it has nothing to do with where you're from, it has nothing to do with a lineage that you come from, has nothing to do with how much money you come from, it has nothing to do with the influence that you come from. Like, if God calls you, there's nothing that can cancel you outside of your own self-sabotage. And even in that, Jonah spent some time in the belly of a whale, and still God redeemed that time.
Yep.
So that's my frame, is like,
Yeah.
I want him to look at me and say, of course I can do anything. You showed me that.
Yep. That's huge.
That's powerful.
That's huge, man. That's his gut. You've instilled that in him to the extent that's his gut reaction when he sees you stressed. That's amazing, man.
Well, and to have a pride in himself. You know, for me, having so much time where I was, especially when I was in ministry, really being addicted to affirmation and the pats on the back, and always in constant comparison, because somebody was always doing it better. Somebody had a bigger church. Somebody sang better than I, had a bigger range. Somebody could shred the guitar better than me. Somebody was a better communicator. And like, you get all of these things stack up. And so you're always like, was that good? Did I do a good job? Do you think I did a good job? Do you think I did a good job? And I noticed that in him. He would win. Be like,
yeah.
Are you proud of me? I'm like, I'm proud of you because you're you. Proud of you because you got on that mat. Proud of you because you got on that field.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you because you studied. Are you proud of you? So helping him frame.
It's good.
I'm proud of you either way, but you need to stand on, what you do for yourself and set your own. My standard is mine. You set your standard. We do the 1 to 10 thing. You can do it with your kids when they get older. It's when he's going to school and I'm dropping him off, I'm like, all right, kindness 1 to 10, where are we at today? Energy 1 to 10, where are you feeling? Because not every day's a 10. And when we live like every day is a 10, it's like, well, I got to perform up to that. Today's not a 10, cool. You can't give 100% every day, but you can give 100% of what you have.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you can say, I gave what, like David, I got 5 smooths, I gave what was in my hand, and I overcame a giant with what I had. I didn't put on anybody else's armor. I wasn't looking to anybody else for affirmation, because just because they can't see it in you doesn't mean God ain't going to do it through you.
That's good, man. I think I was raised maybe unintentionally as an achiever like that, of like, I got to hit the accolades. Like if I hit a triple in Little League to walk-off triple. Yeah. It was like, man, if I work a little bit harder, I could have hit a home run. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was like the
which I also think is a good thing for us, because I think it developed a tenacity, but there's, for every light, there's a shadow.
Yes. And it's like stuff you got to address at some point, and like for me, it was marriage, when I got a mirror held up in my face and she's like, hey, this isn't good for you. Like, you got some self-work to do, Yeah. And you don't have to address this, but it will continue to affect you and your kids in these ways if you don't. I mean, that's like, I didn't understand what it meant. I didn't understand what like sanctification in marriage meant until I was 5 years in. And I was like, oh, I get it now. Like, I just thought I fell in love with this girl. I think she's beautiful. She's my best friend. We enjoy doing the same things. We love Jesus. Let's get married. And we did. And now I'm like, oh, God needed her to refine me so that by the end of my life, I became the kind of man that he always intended for me to be. Left to my own devices, I would never get there. So that's why she's here. Like, that's why we exist together. And same thing for her, you know? I mean, even in the ways that I, you know, she has to have more patience because of me, right? Like, even in my mess ups, it's refining and sanctifying her, right? She has to slow down her thought process and gather herself and not explode when I do something stupid. Yeah. And that is, but I just didn't understand it, man. And now, you know, we're going on 8 years of marriage, 3 kids, trying to figure out if we're done, if we have more. We have no idea. Just like, but it's now, I don't know, I'm more grateful than I've ever been for that, because I see, 1, my career path, and 2, being left to my own devices as a really like a kid in the mind. Before I got married, I was a kid, and my mentality reflected that. Knowing the paths that I would have gone down without her, when I was a 75-year-old man looking back on my life, I would have been like, man, I missed it. I missed the whole point, dude. And so I'm really grateful for her. I have, I do want to ask you before we run out of time, because I think we're pretty close to sound check. I do want to ask you a little bit about, I've seen a complete transformation really from the time that I was 16 and knew you to like multiple transformations, really. Yeah. Like, you were in ministry, you were skinny as a rail. Yeah. You were going through a really tough season. Yeah. Then fast forward, you started, you know, a discipline journey is what I would probably call it, like all the way around. And then you got really extreme with that. And then I saw you at one point, your faith journey was just different. Yeah. Right? Like you were seeing the world through a different lens. Yeah. And then now I feel like you have come to a point where your faith is more real than it's probably ever been. Yeah. So I just want to, like, give me the high points of those 3 phases that from afar I watched, and like where you're at now.
Probably be more effective, because we can always talk about mountaintops, and that makes for real good TV. But it was the low points that got me there. It was when I went through my first divorce, it was a complete shell shock to me and felt like a complete failure. And then went through a season the year after, and even in that process, of just tremendous loss. Lost, 8 family members and friends, murders, suicides, overdoses. And nothing in my faith journey had prepared me for that. And I didn't understand, because I was like, I feel like I'm trying to do all the right things. And so ended up getting sick, stepped out of ministry to start a journey separate from that, because I recognized, like, man, the affirmation, I was fighting depression, fighting massive anxiety, and just a lot of trauma that I couldn't deal with, and blamed God for all of it. And so just went a completely different way. Confused a lot of people, confused a lot of my old students, and I hate that. But it was where I was, and it was as honest as I could be at the time. I can remember Ben reaching out, like, what are you doing? And very quickly, got remarried. That was a very, just rushed and unhealthy relationship. And then on the backside of that, I really felt like I don't deserve to talk about God anymore.
That's a real thing.
Because I have, like David says in the Psalms, like, I made my bed in hell. And for what? And it was my co-parent. It was Courtney, and her husband.
And for context,
that's Stetson's mom and her husband,
first wife.
Yep.
Yeah.
Started speaking life into me and who I am outside of what I do or who I know or what I've accomplished or anything else. It started giving me fresh vision. And then, I met Sarah, my wife, and we dated for 2.5 years. There's a lot of trauma I needed to process. It was very, very slow.
Yeah.
And something shifted in me. I was traveling, I was speaking, I was doing all the things, and I was kind of at the top of the game, speaking with some of the larger names in the circuits that I run in. And I had a dream, and this was last year. I had a dream. I was in Dallas speaking, and I'm at a table with all these guys. I love them. They're all great guys in a lot of ways. But a man came up and put his hand on my shoulder. And he said, "You have fought your whole life to sit at a table I would have turned over." And I woke up in a sweat, dude. I woke up. My videographer was in the room with me, in Two Queens. And I woke up in a panic. And so he just started praying over me. His name's Braden, just one of my best friends and a great man of God. And so we started praying. And I started asking God, like, what do you need from me right now? Because I'm yours. I'm in. He's like, I need you to stop speaking, and I just need you to start studying again. So I canceled everything for the back half of last year. Just went back into studying like I was in academics again. And I met with my mentor in January, and he's like, all your content's trash. I'm like, what? He's like, podcast clips. He's like, saying the same things. Like, God's called you to pastor people. I'm like, he did. He's like, no, he did.
Now,
and he said, you need to start speaking to people. And so you probably saw like the shift in content even, which has gained a lot of traction. It's been very, very interesting, like a confirmation of what God is doing. But it is on the backside of a lot of humility and a lot of failure, a lot of missteps, a lot of missteps with my son, a lot of missteps with my co-parents, and being able to own that. And it's really easy to cast those things off and say, well, that's life. But there has to be a point where, like, now everything is seasoned in experience, but in a deep sense of humility. So I don't have judgment for people. So I'll walk with people. So everybody that messages me anytime on social, like, I always get back to them. Like, I told God, not that God needs me to tell him anything, that if I get too cool, if my ego creeps in, if I get too busy, just take it all away. This is for you. Take it all away. So he's blessing it.
Dude, that's a good prayer to pray, man.
And that's the thing. Like, what I've learned is, like, if God calls it, there's no man, no thing, there's nothing that can cancel it.
Yeah.
Other than you
getting in your own way.
Getting in your own way, resting on old stories, looking at who you've been. But God will redeem anything and everyone. So.
That's good. Man, I didn't expect to go that deep.
That's what
I knew we would go deep, because
I was gonna say that's what she said. Maybe that's a good way to end the podcast.
That's a great way to end it, man. I'm back to square one.
Back to square one. He's awesome. Still a youth pastor.
That was awesome. No, I mean, I knew the conversation would be good and rich, but I didn't. You never really know where it's gonna go. We'll have to do it again, because I still want to talk about one, motorcycle mechanics.
Let's go.
I still want to talk about co-parenting.
Yeah.
I think that is a super unique thing that could be more healing for more people.
Yeah. It was one of the hardest things, egos and assumptions and stories. Now, it is the richest experience of our lives.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so
and you see
like taboo.
We're always all together. My wife and my son's mom are great friends. All PTA together. Like,
I see you post pictures with them, and
you see me with their kids all the time. Yeah,
and it's powerful to see the healing and the like redemption there.
Yeah,
and it's jarring from the outside looking in.
Yeah,
and I think I know you speak to it quite a bit. Especially, there's a lot of people that always ask you about it, but I think that would be a great topic to learn from you from. And then we didn't even dive into music really, so I feel like we got a
lot to go.
Yeah, we got to do this again. So next time we roll through Tulsa or Rogers or
June.
Yeah, June.
Man, we already got tickets to your show.
Come on. Dude, that's going to be fun. That'll be my 30th birthday, June 21st.
Let's go.
It's going to be a blast. Night 1's sold out. Night 2's, I think, halfway sold out. So I don't know when this is coming out, but if it comes out before June, get your tickets. Hopefully you still have time to get them. I think it'll, right on. Well, dude, thanks for taking the time.
Dude.
We got you tickets. You'll be able to hang out. You have anybody with you?
No.
Right on. I know you wanted to.
We just came from the Elephant Sanctuary. We beeline from Hugo to Tulsa, and I beeline from Tulsa to here.
Nice. So they turned around and went home?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dropped them off at home.
Yeah. Well, we'll go do sound check, and then I'll gather up the guys. I know you wanted to say something to them.
Cool.
So.
Hey, I'm proud of you.
Thank you, man.
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. Dude, well, our journeys have both come a long way.
Yeah.
Since, 2015?
Dude, was it? It's 14, 15, yeah.
A long way.
Time.
A lot of mountains and valleys, as we call them in my house. I always ask my kids, what was your mountain and your valley today?
Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite parts of our days. But there's been a lot of them. So I'm happy to see where you're at, man, with your family and your career.
Yeah.
Like, it's been really cool to watch. So.
God's good. He's faithful.
God is good. All right, that's it.